It all kicked off with a call I never should have picked up. A voice I recognized instantly, though I hadn't heard it in over 10 years, cut through the static with a straightforward plea. Meet me. Just once. I should have brushed it off, deleted the voicemail, pitched the burner phone into the nearest sewer grate, and walked away without a second thought. But curiosity doesn't come with a kill switch. By the time I climbed into my car, the past already had its hands around my throat. The meeting place was a rundown rest stop off Route 7, once a discreet venue for shady deals, now littered with busted taillights and the ghost of cheap beer. He was already there, propped against a rusted-out sedan, looking as drained as I felt. "I hear you're still in the business of fixing lost causes," he said with a tired grin. "Guess that makes two of us." I didn't bother asking why he reached out. I didn't have to. We both knew favors like this come with strings, and they always pull tight when you least expect. As I drove off, hands clamped a little too firmly around the steering wheel, I knew this was one of those moments. The Last Stop Tavern sat at a forgotten junction where 3 counties kissed, just beyond the city's leash. Locals just called it the Stop. Thanks to a steady rotation of off-duty cops, it had a reputation as a blue-collar cop bar where you didn't ask too many questions. Not exactly a subtle choice for a secret meeting, making it the perfect one. When I pulled into the packed lot, the place was buzzing. The bar itself had more booze than it needed, with a wide-open setup and plenty of elbow room. It was the last Friday of the month, so it was busy, but not unmanageable. The vibe was just right. Enough background noise to keep my chat with Sergeant Tobias Lane from standing out, but not so loud we'd have to whisper. The second I stepped inside, I felt the weight of every stare. No surprise there. When you're the guy everyone thinks off his unfaithful wife and her badge-carrying side piece, smiles don't come easy. No trial, no indictment, not even a body. The detective's car vanished the same night they did, but to the public, I was already tried and convicted. Sure, I had motive. Proof? That was another story. Outside the courthouse, Tobias had shown up, already annoyed that I'd picked a public spot. He was tall, broad-shouldered, a black man who carried himself like a moral compass in a world gone sideways. The kind who'd rather choke on pride than owe a guy like me a favor. But sometimes debts demand payment, whether you like it or not. Let's not pretend I'm anyone's hero. I'm not the lawyer you introduce at dinner parties. My name shows up in too many case files and my ethics tend to be more flexible than most. Still, just once, I did the right thing. Back in 2008, Tobias was knee-deep in a predatory mortgage scheme, days from losing the roof over his sick daughter's head. The squeaky-clean lawyers had already failed him. Out of options, he showed up at my door like a man being dragged behind a truck. I still can't say what moved me to help. Maybe it was how desperate he looked, an upright man barely holding it together, terrified of telling his kids they'd be homeless. So I did what I do best. First, I bought time by filing bankruptcy. Then I sent a couple of my more persuasive clients to have a little face-to-face with the mortgage broker. A few tense conversations later, we had a full confession. The whole deal was a sham. A strategically timed bribe sealed it, the kind the bank wasn't about to match. Tobias kept his house. For once, something that felt like justice actually happened. But Tobias never really shook off the fact that he owed that victory to someone like me. "You really think this was the smartest place to meet?" he asked, clearly unimpressed. "I'm not heartless," I told him. "I wouldn't risk putting you in the line of fire just to talk." "Which explains why we're here," he said, raising a skeptical eyebrow just as Lottie came over. Lottie, the bartender, wore her signature outfit, jeans painted on like a second skin and a crop top that didn't leave much to the imagination. She was gorgeous, and she knew it. Never missed a chance to show it off either. "What'll it be, Miles?" she asked, with just a hint of the usual teasing tone. Lottie and I had this long-running routine of trading flirty jabs and off-the-cuff advice. She was a single mom, always picking charm over character, and unlucky enough to fall for the wrong kind of man. I noticed her pause, brief but telling. To most people around here, I was already guilty, and guilt tends to stick to those around it. Even so, she didn't send another server. Turns out I still had a few allies. But I wasn't about to let them pay the price for it. "2 Boston Lagers, Lottie," I said without missing a beat. Tobias shook his head. "You've got some stones, counselor." Showing up here, where Victor Delgado's crew likes to unwind after hours. Victor Delgado. The guy who wormed his way into my wife's bed and set this whole disaster in motion. On March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, he, his flashy Ford GT, and my wife all vanished into the night. That same evening, a monster storm rolled in and swallowed half the state, including Chihari Creek. Anywhere else, they'd call it a river. But around here, people stubbornly clung to calling it a creek. That name fooled plenty into ignoring its danger. Over and over again, people built too close, bridges, homes, businesses, and time after time, the water took it all back. When the flooding finally backed off, emergency crews were stretched thin. 2 missing cheaters weren't exactly a top priority. And when things settled, everyone was looking squarely at me. Bold move, walking in here, I muttered under my breath. We kept the conversation light at first, sticking to nothing in particular. When the beers landed, I leaned in close. Say what you need to say. I'll take care of the rest. No one will ever trace it to you. Tobias paused, then dropped his voice. There's a warrant. Sunday morning, 6 a.m. They're hitting your house and your office. I shoved my chair back hard, making sure everyone noticed. Tobias winced as I shot to my feet. You listen to me. I barked loud enough to rattle the glasses on the bar. I don't take orders from sewer scum. Then, pointing toward Lottie, I added, hell, I'd trust her over you any day. With that, I spun around and stormed out, leaving Tobias in my dust shaken, sure, but not clueless. He'd get the message. To anyone watching, it would look like a cop trying to shake me down, not someone tipping me off. A tense public clash? That kept Tobias safe. A private chat could have sunk him. Out in the chill night air, I inhaled slowly, trying to steady the chaos in my chest. This disaster was mine to clean up. I'd let my emotions get the better of me, something I swore I'd never do. Now I had to fix it, because justice isn't about fairness, it's just a game with bloodier rules. And if I had any shot at winning, I'd have to outplay everyone else. Even then, the words from Nina's journal echoed in my head like a swarm of angry hornets. Every sentence stung. Every page was another punch to the gut. Nina Carter. Wife. Liar. The entry from October 1st read, I saw him again today. Tall, handsome, and confident, with hair like polished obsidian. Tessa says she knows him, actually knows him. She's been sleeping with him. He's a cop, probably watching me. Something about Miles. But Miles? He's just a lawyer. Why anyone thinks he's dangerous is beyond me. Sure, he works with criminals, but he's harmless. Don't get me wrong. I love him. He's stable, predictable, safe. But maybe too predictable. The kind of man you can count on, but not crave. Tessa says Officer Victor Delgado is impressive. She's been sneaking around with him for months behind her husband's back. Mark and Miles, they're cut from the same cloth. Dependable. Boring. Only difference is, Mark flips houses and Miles defends degenerates. Tessa just wanted something thrilling for once. And me? 15 years married, raising a teen daughter. I feel like I should be knitting on a porch in a sweater set. Women like me don't get second glances from young men anymore. It makes me feel ancient. October 15th, Miles is out of town. Again. Lately, he's barely around. If it were someone else, I might suspect an affair. But Miles? He's loyal to a fault, like some overgrown golden retriever, devoted, predictable, and utterly blind to anything outside his work. I finally caved and joined the gym, Tessa's idea, of course. She's obsessed with fitness and wanted a partner. I'm not totally out of shape, at least not like Miles, who's clumsily wrestling with his midlife crisis. But I could definitely tighten up. I doubled my morning run from 1 mile to 2, but my stomach and backside still need serious work. Maybe it's early onset empty nest syndrome. Maybe getting in shape will fill the void. Maybe I should have pushed back harder when Lila begged to go to boarding school. She practically packed her own bags. That kid is all ambition and ice, just like my mother. Mom still says I wasted my potential as a social worker. But helping people does matter. Then again, maybe Lila just wanted to escape the gossip about her father. People talk, and teenage girls listen. I get it. Doesn't make the house feel any less empty. I saw him again today. Victor. He was at my gym, and damn, he looked incredible. His body's like it was carved from stone. I tried not to gawk, really did, but those shorts left nothing to the imagination. Why's he still following me? No clue. But if I've got a stalker, I could have done worse. October 17th. Victor was there again. This time, he caught me staring. He didn't grin or make a joke, just locked eyes with me, calm and intense. I was the one who had to look away. Tessa swears he's into me, but I can't see why. Unless this is still somehow about Miles. That night, I poured a glass of wine and lay back in bed, trying to clear my head. But all I could picture was Victor, his body, the way he moves, and everything I've imagined under those shorts. I didn't want to think about it. It felt wrong. But a fantasy isn't betrayal, right? Everybody fantasizes. November 2nd. Went to vote. Not that it matters. As I stepped out of the polling station, there he was, Victor again. And this time, he didn't bother hiding. He wanted me to notice him. I called out, teasing, still spying on me. He gave a casual shrug. It's my job. That's my excuse, anyway. I raised an eyebrow. Excuse? He smiled, slow and knowing. If you were following me, I wouldn't need an excuse. Exactly. So why do you? Have you looked in the mirror lately? I laughed. Please, I'm a mom with a teenager. He didn't miss a beat. That just makes you confident. Not old. You're still the kind of woman guys dream about. I rolled my eyes. Cut it out. You're not old, Nina, he said. You're just magnetic. Before I could reply, someone I recognized passed by, and I ended the conversation in a rush. But his words stuck with me. I had lost 5 kilos, sure, and I'd toned up. But a man like Victor actually noticing me? That was worth clinging to. Maybe I'll hire a personal trainer. Push even harder. If he's already looking, imagine if I really tried. Miles picked up on the change, of course. This morning, a bouquet of 24 roses showed up at the house. When I called him to ask why, he simply said, "Because my wife is beautiful." What do you even say to a man like that? I love him. I truly do. Sure, I flirted with another man, but I'd never crossed the line. I closed the journal, then picked up my phone. Logan answered on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep. You know what time it is, counselor? I've been calling since 9, I said flat. I was working, Logan Shaw muttered. Well, I've got a new job for you. Can it wait? No. Top priority. He let out a long, groggy sigh. What now? By sunrise Sunday, I want full blackout security at my home and office. You're asking for complete coverage? That takes at least 72 hours. You're giving me, what, 24 hours? Logan asked flatly. Just found out I need it, I said, my voice low. There was a long pause, then a slow, annoyed sigh. It's gonna cost you. How much? 35 grand. For all the work I've sent your way? That is the discounted rate, Miles. Anyone else? I'd charge 50. I didn't argue. Couldn't. At this point, Logan could have asked for 100 grand, and I'd have written the check without blinking. Fine, I said. Just make it happen. November 9th. I'd run into Victor 3 separate times that week. Each time, he gave me that casual, cocky grin and a wave, like we were part of some secret world only we understood. Tessa, meanwhile, had gone full throttle. She didn't bother hiding the fact that she and Victor were sleeping together. In her words, he was the best she'd ever had. He was 29, 8 years younger than me. I asked if he was really worth blowing up her life over. She just laughed. Ask me again after you've had a taste. That night, when Miles walked through the door, I dragged him to the bedroom like a woman starved. Having our daughter away at school definitely had its perks. Miles was good. He always had been. Reliable, attentive, solid. But even as he held me, the truth gnawed at me from the inside. Because in that moment, all I could think about was Victor. Was I really that twisted? Had I become the kind of woman who needed another man's face in her head just to feel desire? Later that afternoon, I tried to clear the fog with a mocha latte at Starbucks, watching strangers drift past the window. Then, out of nowhere, Victor appeared, sliding into the seat across from me like he belonged there. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at me, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Finally, he spoke. They reassigned me, he said calmly. I blinked, thrown. What? So, I'm no longer your assignment. What does that mean exactly? He leaned in, voice smooth and deliberate. It means the department doesn't see you as part of whatever your husband's involved in. They think you're innocent. And then, without asking, he placed his hand over mine. His grip was strong, purposeful, but it also means I'm free to say what I've been holding back. I swallowed, which is that I like you, that I want to know you. For real. Victor, I'm married. He didn't flinch. So, and what exactly does get to know me mean to you? He took my other hand, locking both in his warm, steady grip. It means you're a beautiful woman stuck in a life that doesn't fulfill you. And you deserve more than that. And Tessa? What about her? He chuckled. Tessa was just physical. She's restless and bored. We both knew it wouldn't last. I want more than just sex. He looked me straight in the eye. Do you really think I'd choose Tessa over you? The sheer confidence in his voice made something twist deep inside me. I've never cheated on Miles, I said, but it came out as more of a question than a statement. Can he say the same? Victor asked, his tone soft but insistent. You've seen him. What do you think? He gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I think you know you deserve better. I ripped my hands away, stood up fast enough to nearly spill my coffee. I had to get out of there. That man, he got under my skin in ways I didn't understand and couldn't control. December 1st. Weeks went by without a glimpse of Victor. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. The truth? I missed him. Missed the way he made me feel, like I was still desirable. Still wanted. I'd never been with anyone but Miles. But curiosity's a dangerous drug. What would it be like? To give in. To be with someone like Victor. Someone younger. Stronger. Skilled in ways Miles couldn't imagine. That night, walking through the nearly empty parking lot outside my office, I felt it. The hairs on my neck stood up, the distinct sensation of eyes on me. I turned. He was there. Victor. I gasped, heart pounding. You scared the hell out of me. What are you doing here? Are you stalking me now? He closed the space between us, slipping a hand around my waist beneath my coat. I had to see you, he whispered. I can't stop thinking about you. I should have backed away. But the truth was, I'd been thinking about him too. Constantly. Victor, don't, I whispered. Please. I can't do this. I can't betray Miles. He didn't answer. Instead, he kissed me. Hard. The kind of kiss that short-circuits reason, raw, hungry, and terrifying. And as much as I wanted to push him away, I didn't. I felt the spark, the heat, the sheer need. I need you, he breathed. More than I've ever needed anyone. And you need me too. I can feel it. And God help me, I kissed him back. Just for a moment. Then panic took over. I shoved him away and scrambled for the driver's seat, fingers fumbling. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I can't, I whispered. I want to, but I can't. Then I drove off without looking back. Sunday morning. The raid. They didn't bother with a knock. Right at sunrise, 4 officers in full tactical gear picked the lock and charged in. They probably expected to catch me asleep. Instead, I was standing at the stove, flipping eggs in a cast-iron skillet. The first officer stormed into the kitchen, battering ram in hand. Hope you like scrambled eggs, I said flatly. Didn't get a chance to say anything else. They grabbed me, dragged me outside, and stuffed me in the back of a police van like garbage. From there, I sat in silence while they tore my home to pieces. They ripped up the carpets, yanked off floorboards, even dug through my garden like they were hunting buried treasure. I was glad, in a twisted way, that most of the flooring was hardwood, less destruction that way. The basement didn't fare as well. They wrecked it. Then came the final insult, my car. The keys were still in the ignition. They could have popped the trunk in seconds. Instead, they forced it open with brute force, mangling the latch just because they could. And for what? When they finally wrapped up, a few officers I actually knew, guys I'd worked with before, tried to play it cool. Come on, Miles, one said. You look like you could use some breakfast. They offered to take me to Denny's. Because apparently, gutting someone's life isn't complete without pancakes. I pushed the rubbery eggs around my plate while one of the officers leaned back in his chair, smug. So, Miles, where'd you stash the bodies? I jabbed at the yolk, unimpressed. Last I heard, there are no bodies. Come on, another one chimed in, grinning like this was all just locker room banter. They vanished in March. It's December now. I turned to the window, eyes on the cloudless sky. Think it'll rain today? I asked. Hasn't rained since the summer floods, and now that you guys trashed my garden, I'll need to replant if I want flowers come spring. They weren't interested in my landscaping. They wanted blood. Or better, my confession. Look, one of them said, his tone lowering as he leaned in like this was some buddy-to-buddy favor. We get it. You probably had your reasons. Maybe you just snapped. Stop playing lawyer for once, be a man. Own it. We'll work something out. I smirked, took a sip of my coffee. No, I don't think it'll rain. We're in a drought. Then I added, maybe I'll swing by Lowe's after this, grab some bulbs. Tulips, maybe. The cop slammed his napkin on the table, done pretending to play nice. Have it your way, counselor. But you know how things go around here. Cop killers burn. He stood. Think about that. December 9th. Today was a war zone. The call came in just after sunrise, 5 kids in immediate danger. I don't normally take CPS calls, but with flu sweeping through the department and the holidays breathing down our necks, we were all doing triple duty. 5 kids under 7, all from the same house of horrors. They'd watched their mother get beaten nearly to death by the man they called Dad. Only two were his biologically, but that didn't matter. He was supposed to protect them. Instead, he turned into their nightmare. I refused to let them be split up or dumped into some cold, county-run shelter 2 weeks before Christmas. But foster homes don't just magically appear. By noon, I had a lead, an older couple in their 60s, retired, energetic, and genuinely looking for a new purpose. She'd been a nurse. He was a former traffic engineer. By 4, they were fully vetted and approved for emergency placement. The kids would be safe. Together, for the first time, they'd know what stability felt like. I felt good about that. Until the state police decided to call. Of course, they had a problem. Some policy issue about foster stipends and pensions. Apparently, because the couple received a state pension, someone thought placing the kids with them might be double-dipping. I slammed my hand on the desk. Can you believe this? I vented to a coworker. The kids witnessed attempted murder, and the state's worried about a damn technicality. I spent the next hour lobbying every bureaucrat I could reach. The debate crawled its way up through the district office, then to the state DSS commissioner. Just when I thought we were dead in the water, my phone rang. When are they arriving? The woman asked. Her voice was warm, eager. We've got bunk beds set up. Our daughters are here to help. I sighed. There's some fuss over your pension and the payments. Tell that idiot governor to keep his money, she snapped. Just send us the kids. When I relayed that to the county executive, she laughed. Screw the red tape. Place the children. If the state wants a fight, let them bring it. It was almost 8 by the time I handed off the case. I didn't get home until 9. First thing I did was peel off the day with a long, hot shower. Afterward, I wrapped myself in a robe and stood there, staring at my phone. Usually Miles called first. Sometimes we'd talk for hours. Other times, he barely had a minute. His clients were never ones to respect working hours. Most of them needed help in the middle of the night. But tonight, I wanted to hear his voice. I had just picked up the phone when the doorbell rang. I froze, tightening the belt around my robe before cracking the door open on the chain. Victor stood there, looking like sin and regret wrapped in one. Can I come in? I don't think that's a good idea. I know Miles is out of town. You're alone. It's late. I'm just asking for coffee. Nothing more. I can't. You can trust me. It's not you I don't trust. Please. 10 minutes. I don't know why, but I opened the door. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, coffee mugs between us like a peace treaty. I kept my distance. Even adjusted my robe to cover more skin, suddenly conscious of how revealing it was. Relax, he said softly. I'm not here to take advantage. I just heard you had a rough one. I let out a tired breath. Yeah, you could say that. At first, the conversation stayed surface level. Safe. But as the night stretched on, the walls started to drop. Coffee turned to wine. Frozen pizza appeared out of nowhere. By midnight, the atmosphere had shifted. Victor's voice lowered. Nina, I'll always be your friend. But I need you to hear this. I stiffened. I feel something for you. Something deeper than I know how to explain. Victor. Please. Just listen. Miles isn't who you think he is. Right now, he's in New York, meeting with cyber criminals and tech smugglers, helping them dodge surveillance. These aren't just street thugs. These are predators. Stop it, I said. That's not fair. He's not even here to defend himself. You're loyal. That's admirable. But is it fair to you? I don't want to talk about this. I've watched you, Nina. I've seen the work you do, how much heart you pour into it. You're too good for the world you're stuck in. You're a saint married to the devil. Don't. I whispered, barely audible. I'll be here for you. Always, he said gently. Somehow, we drifted closer. His fingers brushed mine. His skin was warm. Electric. Then, his hand slipped beneath my robe. The jolt that went through me was impossible to ignore. His mouth found mine, hungry, sure, and entirely too good. I didn't stop him. Because for the first time in what felt like years, I felt. Not numb. Not dutiful. Not resigned. Alive. We both knew where this was headed, and neither of us was trying to stop it. Until the phone rang. The sound was sharp, invasive. Reality came crashing down. It had been ringing long enough to mean only one thing. Miles, I gasped, yanking away from Victor like I'd been burned. I grabbed the phone, trying to keep my breath even. Just checking in, Miles said gently. Did I wake you? I lost track of time. Across the room, Victor let out a quiet sigh. His gaze lingered on me, long, disappointed, maybe even relieved, before he turned and walked out without another word. Miles's call had saved me. Stopped me from going too far. But as I sat there, heart pounding, I had to wonder, did I really want to be saved? The DA's office was still the same, cold, colorless, and weighed down by bureaucratic gray. Same government chairs, same fluorescent hum. Sierra Vaughn sat across from me, all ambition and arrogance, riding high on the name of her father, a once powerful senator who'd slipped through every legal net but still pulled enough strings to land her this job. To her, I wasn't a defense attorney. I was a walking indictment. "Where's your weapon, Mr. Carter?" she asked, voice cool and rehearsed. "We didn't find it in the search." I blinked. "Weapon? A Smith & Wesson .44 Magnum. Registered to you." "Missing." "It was in my nightstand," I said, leaning back. "Are you telling me it's gone?" She folded her hands. "Miles, things would go a lot smoother if you were just honest." I smirked. "Then let's start with you. What exactly did your people find?" "In time," she said with a slight smile. "Then I'll answer in time," I replied, standing. She slid a paper across the table. "You're being summoned before a grand jury." I picked it up without surprise. I'd been waiting for this. They had the diary. Every word. Every secret Nina had scribbled into those pages. They had the affair, the lies, the doubts I'd worked so hard to ignore. And now they were going to twist it into a motive, frame me with the scraps of my wife's betrayal. To someone like Sierra Vaughn, this wasn't a criminal investigation. It was a love story gone tragic. Two forbidden lovers. A bitter, vengeful husband. Classic narrative. But my version was different. So was my grief. Among the many casualties of the raid was Nina's antique writing desk. It had been a delicate, beautiful piece, slim and elegant, something from the colonial era she dreamed about back when we had nothing. It had sat untouched for months in the window of a rundown antique store. Nina used to pause in front of it, pressed to the glass like a child eyeing a Christmas display. Back then, we were newly married. Lila was wobbling through her first steps, Nina was buried in night classes, and I was a no-name lawyer scraping by on public defender scraps. I saved every cent I could, determined to buy her that desk for our anniversary. When I finally walked into the store, heart full of plans, the desk was gone. I nearly walked right back out crushed. But the clerk checked the back. It had just been moved. I had it delivered that night. Nina cried when she saw it. Over the years, I watched her sit at that desk, grading papers, jotting case notes, writing letters she never sent. Every time I saw her there, I thought, we built this. Love wasn't diamonds or candlelight. It was smaller than that. The look in her eyes when she opened that gift. The first time Lila stood on her own. That cramped little townhouse we turned into a home. Those were the things that made a marriage. Now that desk, the one that symbolized everything we had, was splintered, the drawers gutted, cracked open like the rest of our life. And yes, I'd locked the drawer with her diary on purpose. I wanted them to find it. But seeing the destruction with my own eyes made it all too real. Nina was gone. Not just physically, really gone. The DA's office leaked the journal within days. Suddenly, Sierra had a narrative she could sell to the media. Now the world wasn't whispering, they were shouting. Nina and Victor Delgado weren't just having an affair. They were lovers torn apart by a jealous husband. I had become the villain in their cheap, tragic play. January 2nd. "I can't seem to get this right," Nina had written. Tessa laughs at me. "Why are you overthinking it?" she says. "Miles is gone. No one knows. What's the big deal? But how do I look him in the eye again? Say what you want about Miles. He's been good to me. If he finds out, what do I say? Blame him," Tessa had suggested. "Tell him it's his fault for always leaving you alone." "He doesn't leave that often," I wrote back. "And when he's home, we're good. We have a decent marriage." "But Victor makes you feel alive," Tessa pushed. I hadn't answered her. I didn't need to. She already knew. "Miles will never find out," she wrote. "And if he does? Do what I did with Mark." "What did you do?" She smirked. "Remember when Mark looked heartbroken that weekend at the cabin? That's when he found out about Victor. I told him the truth, that I still loved him, but it didn't change anything. That Victor was different. That some men just know how to make a woman feel alive." I stared at the page. "You're lucky Mark didn't own a gun," I had scribbled beneath it. "Somehow," she wrote, "I think Miles will understand. Just like Mark did." In the weeks that followed, I saw Victor often. Always in public. Never alone. But he never stopped watching me, or watching Miles. And Miles, he tried. He was around. Attentive. We were intimate. More than we had been in years. I should have been happy. I should have felt safe. But every time Miles touched me, every kiss, every whisper in the dark, it wasn't him I pictured. It was Victor. Then, A few days later, Victor slipped me a folded note. An address. A date. A time. The date? The same day Miles was scheduled to leave for New York. It had to be Victor's place. I told myself I wouldn't go, that I'd only show up to ask him to stop. January 15th. Oh God, what have I done? I went to his apartment. I told myself nothing would happen, that I'd be strong, that I'd remember who I was. Then he kissed me, and just like that, none of it mattered anymore. He led me into the bedroom with an ease that felt rehearsed, yet completely disarming. His fingers moved to the buttons of my blouse, undoing them one by one, slow and deliberate, until it slipped from my shoulders like silk. His hands followed the curve of my arms, pausing at my wrists as he leaned in, pressing his mouth firmly against mine. When his hands explored my skin, it wasn't rushed, it was reverent. And while I was still half-dressed, he was suddenly not. He peeled away his clothes with casual confidence, revealing a body that looked like it had been carved, not born. He had the kind of stamina that didn't feel real, like it belonged to someone in a movie, not a real man. We didn't stop. Not for hours. By the time I stepped back out into the street, the sky had already turned dark. I left his apartment knowing exactly what I wasn't ready to admit out loud. I'd be back. Sierra Vaughn's opening statement was colder than usual, sharper too, and that told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't written it. No, this one had teeth. It had pacing, strategy. Graham Redding, the district attorney himself, sat beside her like a politician waiting for applause. He wasn't going to get his hands dirty, but he wanted credit for the kill. Typical. I was representing myself. Judge Bascom didn't hide his distaste. A lawyer who defends himself has a fool for a client, he said, almost bored. Better that than a fool as my lawyer. I replied evenly. Bascom didn't crack a smile. He wasn't there for justice. He was there to make an example out of me. When the time came to instruct the jury, I knew what he'd do. Twist the meaning of reasonable doubt until it bent toward a guilty verdict. But I wasn't shaken. Not yet. I still had a card up my sleeve. The truth. Trouble was, the prosecution had something better, a love story. A dirty, tragic, irresistible tale. The noble cop. The tortured social worker. Two souls fate had torn apart. And me? I was the bitter husband. The obstacle. The villain. Because courtrooms don't run on facts. They run on stories. Sergeant Riley, Sierra began. Did you open the trunk of the defendant's vehicle? Yes, Riley answered matter of fact. What kind of car was it? An older Toyota Camry. Brown. A few jurors raised their eyebrows. Sierra didn't have to say it. What kind of top-dollar lawyer drives a clunky old Camry? She let that thought hang in the air. Clever Miles Carter. Always thinking one step ahead. And what did you find inside? She asked, her tone dripping suggestion. The trunk had been recently cleaned, but we recovered hair and fiber samples consistent with both Officer Delgado and Mrs. Carter. So it's possible, Sierra said with a dramatic pause, that the bodies were transported in that vehicle? I rose. Objection. Speculation. Overruled. Bascom snapped before I'd even sat down. The witness is an expert, he added. He can answer. Riley didn't hesitate. He laid it all out, his theory. How I'd killed them. How I'd cleaned the car. How I'd disposed of their bodies like yesterday's trash. Every word soaked in certainty. When it was my turn, I leaned forward. Sergeant, if my car was used to move their bodies, where's Victor Delgado's Mustang? Riley blinked. I'm not sure I understand. His car, I repeated. A Shelby GT 500, custom-painted electric blue. That ring any bells? He squirmed. We haven't located it. I turned to the jury. This isn't some generic sedan. It's a showpiece. The kind of car people notice. Yet no one's seen it since March. Riley cleared his throat. No, it hasn't been recovered. I wasn't done. Let's get back to my Camry. Your team forced it open, right? Yes. Why not use the keys? A long pause. We might have missed them. You missed the keys, I repeated. Funny, because those same keys were later used to open the trunk, weren't they? Riley's brow furrowed. Before he could stammer out a reply, Sierra jumped up. Objection, argumentative. Facts not in evidence. Of course. She didn't want truth. She wanted blood. Next up, Investigator Kim Ng. He told the jury how his team had peeled back the basement carpet and discovered old bloodstains underneath. Did you identify the blood? Sierra asked. No, he admitted. The sample was too degraded. But you detected bleach in the area? Yes. Bleach is commonly used to erase crime scenes, isn't it? Yes, he said, clearly savoring the gravity of his answer. When it was my turn, I didn't bother with theatrics. Investigator Ing, I said calmly, is there a laundry room in my basement? Yes. And would it be unusual, I asked, to find bleach in a laundry room? A long pause. That depends on who's doing the laundry. He knew the answer. The jury certainly did. 7 women, all of whom had likely bought bleach themselves that week, shared a look. Didn't say it out loud. He didn't need to. Then the prosecution brought out the big guns, Nina's diary. January 16th. I feel guilty and weightless all at once. I can't stop thinking about Victor, his body, the way he touches me, how he makes me feel alive. And yet, I feel so ashamed when I think of Miles. I want to believe the worst about him, because if he's truly the monster people whisper about, maybe what I've done isn't unforgivable. But I know better. Miles has always loved me, and I betrayed him in the ugliest way possible. Sometimes I think he knows, that he can read it on my face. She had written it at her desk. The desk Miles bought me back when we were broke. A real antique. I saw it once in a shop window and thought it was too beautiful to ever belong to me. Back then, we couldn't afford luxuries. We were newlyweds. I was desperate for a baby, and I made the decision. I stopped taking birth control. It should have been a decision we made together, but I made it alone. I stopped taking birth control without telling Miles. He never made me feel guilty, not when money ran out, not when life got hard. He only ever worried about how to take care of us. And somehow, even with everything falling apart, he still found a way to buy me that antique desk. My husband. My best friend. The man I betrayed. I keep repeating to myself that I'll stay away from Victor. But when I close my eyes, all I can see is running back into his arms. Miles is coming home tonight. Maybe he already knows. Maybe this is the moment everything ends, one way or another. January 17th. Nothing happened. If Miles suspected anything, he didn't let it show. And yet, something was different. There was space between us. A quiet tension. Maybe it's just in my head. Maybe guilt makes everything feel more distant. He seemed tired. Detached. For now, I'll pretend everything's normal. I left early for work to avoid seeing him in the morning light. Barely 10 minutes after arriving, my phone buzzed. It was Victor. He said he needed to hear my voice. And I let him. We talked until I had no time left to stall my shift. And I'll admit it now, to myself if no one else. What I feel for Victor is love. Not the soft, reliable love I had with Miles. Something messier. More consuming. More real. January 19th. I snuck away from work for an extended lunch break and went to Victor's place. He works late now for to midnight, so we had 2 perfect hours. I went home afterward, and Miles barely reacted. Or maybe I imagined his indifference. Maybe guilt's warping everything. We haven't been intimate since his trip to New York. He'll be around this weekend. I'll find a way to make it up to him. February 12th. The last month's been a blur. Victor and I meet regularly now, at least twice a week. Sometimes in the middle of the day, other times at night when Miles is away, which is more and more often. Victor says Miles is working with dangerous people, that the FBI has tried to monitor him but can't keep up. He's too careful, too good at what he does. Miles helps criminals dodge surveillance, uses back-channel permits to get them tech that borders on illegal. Victor doesn't spell it out, but I know. He's still watching Miles. And I should feel safer knowing that. But I don't. I feel trapped. I love them both in different ways. But they're enemies now. Opposing sides in a war I can't escape. Miles has been perfect lately. Too perfect. He's affectionate. Thoughtful. He brings home small gifts, leaves flowers for me, makes love like we're young again. But I know him. I know the silence behind his smiles. He hasn't said a word, but I can feel the tension pulling at him like a cord stretched too tight. We moved to admit the diary into evidence, Sierra said flatly. We were behind closed doors in Bascom's chambers, hashing it out. Judge, I said, trying to stay calm, it's hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement being offered to prove guilt. That matters. Bascom looked unmoved. Mr. Carter, forgive me, but I don't see a compelling reason to exclude it. Hearsay doesn't concern you? There are exceptions, Sierra chimed in, casually smug. Which ones? I asked. She just smirked. A few. No elaboration. No argument. She didn't need one. Bascom had already made up his mind. It's admitted, he said, waving me off like a nuisance. If I'm wrong, you can appeal. But appeals were smoke and mirrors. Once you're convicted, Nobody's overturning a verdict over something like hearsay. Sierra didn't read the diary herself. She handed that honor to one of her paralegals, a soft-spoken young woman with wide brown eyes and just enough innocence to sell the drama. She even blushed when she read the more intimate parts. The jury ate it up like it was gospel. Nina's affair wasn't salacious. It wasn't selfish. No, Sierra made sure it played like tragedy. March 16th. Lila came home for spring break. We haven't spoken since Christmas. She looked happy, but distant, like she was visiting someone else's house. I still don't understand why she insisted on going to boarding school. I have a feeling it was because of the rumors. Because of Miles. She loves him. I know she does. But love doesn't block out whispers. And in high school, whispers are poison. With Lila around, Victor and I can't meet at my place. And now he's growing nervous. He thinks his colleagues are starting to notice. If they find out while he's still investigating Miles, he's finished. He wants a transfer. He wants me to leave Miles. And now that I'm standing at the edge of that decision, I finally see how wrong all of this is. What I'm doing to Victor, to Miles, to Lila. It's all cruel. Seeing my daughter again, it was like a slap. I've been living in fantasy. And now reality is here, waiting. I'm her mother. I'm Miles's wife. They don't deserve this pain. Not from me. And if I choose to end this with Victor, yes, it'll hurt. But the pain I'll feel will be nothing compared to the wreckage I'd leave behind if I kept going. For the first time in months, I see it all clearly. This wasn't love. It was obsession. Addiction. Tomorrow, I'll end it. He won't be alone for long. Tessa's been hovering, waiting for her chance. She's younger, prettier. And Mark? He's powerless. He can't do a thing to stop Victor. But everyone keeps saying Miles wouldn't do anything either. That Miles isn't that kind of man. Would Miles hurt Victor if he knew? I don't want to believe it. I can't believe it. He's never laid a hand on me. He's always been patient, gentle, good. But then, I hear what people say, and I wonder. Victor is convinced Miles is dangerous, that I should be afraid, and maybe I should. But when I look at my husband, I don't see a killer. I see the man I married, the father of my child, the man who, even now, still tries to make me smile. Tomorrow, I'll end it. It was going to hurt, but it had to be done. I picked up the phone and called Tessa. Told her to reach out to Victor the day after tomorrow. He was going to need someone to lean on, and she had been circling for months. Let her be the shoulder he cried on. The paralegal closed the diary gently, then looked up at the jury with wide, mournful eyes. She blinked once, perfectly timed, lips parted like the weight of Nina's words had shaken her to her core. It was theater, every moment staged, every inflection practiced. She wasn't just reading a diary. She was delivering a eulogy for a love story the prosecution had sculpted into myth. Nina and Victor, tragic lovers. Me? I was the villain they had to escape. A cold-hearted monster who stood in the way of something pure. But sitting there, listening to my wife's words, I didn't hear romance. I heard regret. What the prosecution spun as devotion, I saw for what it was, a remorse. Nina had realized, too late, that Victor wasn't a rescuer. He was a manipulator. He pursued her despite knowing she was married. He'd watched her, followed her, and she had let it happen, until she finally understood it was a mistake. She had chosen me, chosen our family. But by then, it was already too late. Maybe Victor genuinely thought he was saving her. Maybe he believed the rumors. But intentions don't change outcomes. They waited too long. And what they found at the end wasn't freedom. It was death. If Nina had been honest sooner, if she had ended it when she knew it was wrong, would they still be alive? I didn't have time to drown in hypotheticals. I was fighting for my life. The jury had already made up their minds. I could feel it, the shift in the room, the tension after the reading. I had a parade of witnesses lined up, but only one really mattered. Logan Shaw. To the jury, he was just another expert. His testimony came with a mountain of paperwork, charts, diagrams, technical gibberish no one would remember. But hidden on page 439 of his report was the only line that mattered. Video surveillance. We started with his background. Bachelor's in electrical engineering from RIT, Army Intelligence. 20 years in the FBI. The man had a resume you couldn't fake. What I didn't say. He'd switched sides after he left. The same criminals he once pursued now paid him handsomely to keep them one step ahead. Logan Shaw was a surveillance ghostbuster. And right now, he was my ghostbuster. Mr. Shaw, have you worked for me before? Yes. Several times. What was your most recent job for me? I installed a full-spectrum security system across both your home and office, every room, every entry point, inside and out. What's the system called? We call it Black Cover. It's designed to expose hidden threats. What kind of threats? Unauthorized access, tampering, evidence planting, illegal monitoring. And in this case? I asked, did you uncover anything dirty? He nodded once. Yes. My team recorded Sergeant Riley removing keys from your Camry and using them to unlock the trunk. After that, he placed a bag of fibers and debris inside. A low murmur rippled across the courtroom. The jury leaned forward. Shortly after, Shaw continued, Riley returned with his team, used a crowbar to force the trunk open, and miraculously discovered the same evidence he had planted. Sierra Vaughn jumped to her feet. Objection. Overruled, Bascom said, barely looking up. Let the jury hear the rest. I stepped aside and let the footage play. The jury watched, silent and transfixed, as Riley framed me frame by frame. There it was, every fiber of so-called damning evidence being deposited like trash. Then theatrically discovered just hours later. And we weren't finished. Shaw turned to the basement. Investigator unclaimed blood was found beneath the carpet, he said. But before that, we recorded an officer entering the premises carrying a vial of red liquid. Moments later, that same spot yielded the blood sample used against Mr. Carter. There was no DNA match. There never had been. What they had wasn't evidence. It was fabrication. No bodies. No murder weapon. No definitive proof a crime had even occurred. All they had was a missing detective. A missing woman. A missing car. And now? That wasn't enough. The jury didn't take long. Not guilty. The words barely left the foreman's mouth before Lila ran to me, throwing her arms around my neck. She had never doubted me. That counted for something. Most others weren't so sure. To them, I'd gotten away with murder. And maybe I had. No officers were disciplined. No charges were filed against those who tried to bury me under their lies. They walked away clean. But in doing so, they did me a favor. Because if they'd waited, if they'd played the long game, they would have found something real. But nature has its own timeline. The dry season lingered. Showari Creek, once raging, shrunk into a whisper. And in that whisper, the truth surfaced. Victor Delgado's car, the electric blue Mustang Shelby GT 500, reappeared like a ghost, lodged deep in the riverbed, unearthed by the drought. Inside, 2 bodies. The frame had kept them sealed, hidden. But the current had dragged them miles before it finally let go. Nina's purse was still in the front seat. Nina herself was beside it, still wearing pieces of what she'd last been seen in. Beside her, Victor, half-dressed. The autopsy confirmed it. They'd been mid-act. Victor had been shot first. The bullet tore through him and into her. They found the missing gun, the one registered to me, tucked under the passenger seat. The very tool that had vanished from my home. Had the police waited, just waited, they wouldn't have had to forge a thing. The creek would have handed them the truth. But instead, they let the diary blind them. They built a fantasy around it, 2 lovers slain by a jealous husband. They rushed it. They needed a villain. And they handed me an acquittal. Now, the police hate me. The public split. But my clients? They see a man who beat the system, beat the odds, and humiliated the state. I had survived. I had won. I was untouchable now. The law tried to drown me. Instead, it gave me air. I raised my rates the next week, brought in a new associate, young, sharp, clean-cut, untouched by scandal. Just like that, I was back. And not just back, bigger than ever. Lottie slid a cold beer across the counter with her usual subtle smile. No words of support, just the quiet certainty in her eyes. She didn't need to say she believed in me. She showed it. We were at Chambers now, a new place in town. She'd left Falcon's Rest a month earlier, and out of loyalty, I followed her. That's how I work. Loyalty earns loyalty. The regulars at Chambers respected me, not because they thought I was innocent, because I'd beaten the system, because I'd survived it. To them, I wasn't a criminal. I was a man who'd stared down the machine and won. They called me an anti-hero. That worked just fine. Sierra Vaughn didn't land so well. When the dust settled, the DA's office needed a scapegoat for their spectacular failure. Sierra was easy to throw under the bus. She resigned in disgrace, named Tarnished, career over. Meanwhile, I sat across from Mark in the quiet back corner of a dim bar, watching him nurse a Sam Adams like it was his last connection to reality. Take your time, I said. No one's waiting for you at home. I sipped my drink. And let's be honest, yours isn't really worth hurrying back to, Is she? He flinched. Just slightly. The kind of wince that told me the words hit home. I think Mark was starting to understand that some women aren't worth the wreckage they leave behind. Tessa was living proof. I'm sorry, he began, then trailed off like he wasn't sure what he was apologizing for. I waved a hand. At this point, an apology's just background noise. I never wanted Nina to get hurt, he said, more to himself than me. Of course not, I said, setting down my glass. Just a tragic little accident, right? I gave him a look. You're no ballistics expert. How could you have known the bullets would pass through Victor and hit her? His fingers trembled as he lowered his beer. Exactly, he murmured. Those seats, they reclined all the way. Like a damn bed. I couldn't even see who was under him. His voice wavered. And I was so angry. Tessa told me she'd gone back to him. Again. Right, I said smoothly. You were half blind with rage. You weren't thinking straight. He latched onto the excuse like it was oxygen. Yes. I didn't plan it. I just wanted to scare him. His voice dropped. I stole your gun. Earlier that week. I knew where you kept it. In the bedroom, I said. For protection. A gift from a client. Mark's face contorted at the irony. She told me she was seeing him again, he muttered. She said Victor would need someone to lean on. He clenched his jaw. I couldn't just sit there and let it happen. So you went in his place, I said gently. You rang the bell. No answer. And I assumed the worst, he whispered. That they were together. I knew where he took his women. The creek. I nodded. Remote. Private. Everyone knew about that damn car. Hard to miss a Mustang that loud. He looked down. It was raining. Pitch black. I walked toward the water. Couldn't see much. But you heard them, I prompted. Mark nodded, eyes distant. She was laughing. Then she moaned. He swallowed hard. It felt like a knife. I didn't think. I didn't even aim. He choked on the words. I pulled the trigger. And the gun? I asked. I dropped it. Or threw it. I don't remember. I didn't even know Nina was there. He looked at me then. Really looked. I'm sorry, he said, voice barely audible. Are you going to the police? I shrugged. Why would I? His eyes snapped up, confused. But I killed your wife. Not on purpose. He exhaled like a balloon losing shape. I don't even know how the car ended up in the creek, he admitted. I figured someone would find it immediately. But when they didn't, and people started blaming you. Of course they did, I said, swirling my drink. No bodies, no weapon. All they had was a story. Mark stared at his beer. But you knew. I nodded once. I had a suspicion. I knew where she'd gone that night. You tracked her. I slipped a GPS tracker in her purse. Just in case. When she vanished, I checked the last ping before the signal went dead. When the car didn't turn up, I figured the flood pulled it downstream. Once it filled with water, it sank. Nature buried the truth for me. Mark was shaking. So, you knew. You knew it was me. Not for sure. But I had a feeling. His voice cracked. I hate that people still think you did it. He looked up, eyes pleading. You have to turn me in. I sighed. Mark, people believe what they want to believe. That's the problem with truth. It's only as useful as the story it fits into. So, you're letting me walk? He asked. From me. I nodded. You're safe. Relief flooded his face. His shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Then, why did you bring me here? He asked, blinking. I reached into my coat and slid a folded sheet of paper across the table. He picked it up, puzzled. What's this? My bill. His eyebrows shot up. You're what? I smiled. Mark, I mounted one hell of a defense. I beat the system. I cleared my name. That doesn't come free. But, you defended yourself. Whose fault is that? I asked. I spent months dismantling a case you helped create. You cost me everything, so now? You get to pay for it. I tapped the invoice. And I did a flawless job. He stared at the dollar amount like it had teeth. That's a lot. That's what excellence costs. His mouth tightened. Do you take American Express? Naturally. I think part of him was relieved. I wasn't punishing him, but I wasn't absolving him either. We live in a world where truth is optional, where innocence is a matter of optics. Headlines matter more than facts. And when the system's that broken, you don't rely on justice. You become your own system. Mark left. I didn't watch him go. Lottie slid another beer in front of me. You okay? She asked softly. I took a slow sip. Yeah, I said. In the end, everything works out for the better.